Hello, Neppers. It is I, Wild Neptune, and this is an Episode 7 video going over some of the new stuff coming out during the summer, including if you should pull on the new Mystic Summons, and preliminary thoughts on units like Summertime SeaSeria and the new AngelGelica. Before that, though, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And catch me at Twitch at twitch.tv/WildNeptune. So, really briefly, starting tomorrow, there will be a side story for the summer. It is three weeks long. So, nice little title screen here. See all the stuff in the patch notes. And the important thing is we have a little volleyball mini game right here. And if you played Azure Lane, they've had something just like this, as far as I know. And you also get this very nice art, this very nice artwork right here, as part of it. So we have Sermia, Alexa, Lucy, and Hazel right here. So, and of course, they will be different levels for the volleyball match. Now, what this has to do with the story, I don't know. I mean, obviously there's a lot of plot right here. So, otherwise, it is a typical side story artifact, but that's all for that. And let's move on to what you're here for, really, and that is my thoughts on the units. So, first up, we will talk about Closer Charles. Now, I don't remember what who he has with him. Tempestern. Okay. So, let's take a look at him. Closer Charles. He's a dark thief. He has good attack. Okay health. Like any thief, his defense is pretty craptacular. A little bit slower for his class. He does have the very strong crit chance imprint, just like his RGB counterpart. So, there is that. His skill 1, Elimination, sharply cuts the enemy. When used on the caster's turn, if the caster is granted Perception, uses Demolition instead of Elimination. And what Demolition does, attacks the enemy with the sword. Damage dealt increases proportional to the target's lost health. When the enemy is defeated, decrease cooldown of Descent, which we will get to in a little bit, by a turn. This attack does not trigger a dual attack. So his secondary S1 is like Holiday Fiends. When it's used on her turn, that can trigger a dual attack. And when Closer Charles uses Demolition, which is granted by Perception, it also does not trigger a dual attack. So his S2 is Closer, or Closer. After an ally, except for the caster, so Charles, attacks, if the enemy's health is less than 30%, increase combat readiness of the caster by 35%, and grants Perception for 2 turns. Can only be activated once every 2 turns. And Perception is just like Green Violet's new buff. It gives a bonus crit chance and crit damage buff by 15%, which kind of lowers the gear requirement for him a little bit more, because you can kind of rig it around if you always know you're going to have Perception up on the first turn, you only need that 85% crit, and that combined with his imprint could be pretty useful. This also helps counteract the fact that he is kind of slower for what his role is, in the fact that he's only like 113 speed. So the extra push is pretty good. Now, remember, it is less than 30% health. That also means the enemy has to still be alive, right? So if you're cleaving with something like, say, a Pavel, which is the premier cleave opener right now in the game, if you just outright kill the enemy target, well, he doesn't get this. And in some cases, that actually could maybe be a problem. And with something like Cerise, you're not going to do that much damage with an opener either. So there are cases where this just doesn't happen. And then finally, his S3 is Descent. It is on a 5-turn cooldown with 4. Attacks all enemies. After descending, increases attack of all allies. So the increased attack happens after. For 2 turns, before increasing CR of... I don't know if this is all allies or just him. I think it's all allies because it's in this sentence here. Increases evasion of the caster for 3 turns, which is actually a very long evasion buff. As we know, increased evasion buff is 50%, or more like 100% if they're on defense, and if you're on offense, it's you know, what do you call it? The other way around. So Soul Burn increases damage dealt. Decent utility and damaging S3 all around. The feeling I get when I look at his kit, obviously, it's going to be for a cleave team. His usage outside of cleave will largely depend on how much damage he can put out in other cases. He has to be preceded by a unit that can go before he does, and also do a decent amount of damage. So Pavel, basically. Maybe like fast Straze, without attack buff, could be an opener where you use the S3. You don't really care if you kill or not, as long as you get one target below 35%. I mean, so below 30% to get the boost. That could also be a factor you could go for. Otherwise, there aren't really enough other openers, I feel like, that synergize that well with him right now in the meta. Maybe like fast Bryceria against somebody squishy. Something like that maybe too. But he does seem like a cleave-only type unit. And someone that might not even always work in the team that he's in. The main issue is that he kind of seems like a win more type unit. You get, like, even if you don't get the initial CR push on this, you already killed somebody, right? With Pavel's S3. And then, if you get all of this, and you're probably in a pretty good spot in terms of your unit pool just being, well, living, because you probably killed at least one other unit on the enemy team. So it's like a 2-on-4 or like 2-on-3 at that point in your favor. And you're just kind of stacking advantage when you don't need it. On top of that, he doesn't really help that much against some of the anti-cleave. The evasion is nice, and sometimes you'll be able to cheese out against, say, a counter Kairon, or maybe even some Bryserias, depending on her artifact and stuff like that. But I don't feel like his kit really counters enough of the anti-cleave or pushes current cleave to a point where I will always run him over something like, say, Secret instead. And again, the only real openers are like Pavel, maybe Sig, and like Fast Straze to not guarantee, but have a pretty good chance of proccing his S2. So do keep that in mind. Also keep in mind too that the new ML4 star, which was also revealed, is the rotation after Closer Charles. So, and we will look at her in a little bit, but first, let's go over very briefly Summertime SeaSeria. And she's coming out next week, so next week there will be a more detailed video on my thoughts about her, but just some preliminary thoughts here. Very high effectiveness with effectiveness imprint. This is important because she does have debuffs. Her attack is really high. Her speed is not bad, right? So S1 dispels 2 buffs and Soul Burn for an extra turn. Dispelling 2 buffs with a pretty high chance, 75%, is a very strong S1, and it synergizes very well with the rest of her kit. So here, S2. So the first Soul Burn she uses does not cost any souls. That means you can S1 strip the buffs. And then what do you call it? They have the passes right here. So the caster cannot trigger a critical hit, but attack is by 20%. After ally, except for the caster, use attack to target all enemies, activate Suppress. So this is the passive. Can only be activated once every 3 turns. And what Suppress is increases the CR of all your allies by 15% and plants a bomb. That's right, a bomb on 2 random enemies for 2 turns. So it is random enemies. So that means it bypasses things like evasion checks. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure immunity still stops it, but that's where the Soul Burn S1 can come in. And then the S3 is an AoE with decreased attack and increases the speed of SeaSeria. Also, it detonates the bombs. Which is pretty good. And when bombs detonate, they, I believe they stun the target, and they decrease increase skill cooldowns too, I think. So there is that. She seems like an interesting hero. Kind of undecided on exactly how good I think she's going to be, because she might be a little bit... She's definitely very, very gimmicky in that she needs a to be paired with units like a Bryceria maybe, right? Or maybe even something like really insane, like you can draft Water Rem. No, I mean it's only one Rem, right? And the Rem counterattacks with the S2, and it procs the suppressed and plants the bombs from the counterattack. You know, stuff like that could be done. Obviously, people are gonna be talking about MO Leo, and well, MO Leo he's getting a recall because there are some things that are changing about the wording of how bomb is like on the tool sheet or whatever like that. So if you have MO Leo, you will be able to recall him as long as he's 5 stars and level 50. You'll be able to get him, the meteor shards and stuff back. If you have dupes, you can check in to see how many you have, and you might want to keep a couple because it was also revealed that there's going to be a balance update in a couple of days, and that ML Leo is, as far as if I understood correctly, is going to be on the update. So at least that's what it seemed like to me. But I would wait until we see what the balance patch is until you just go ahead and ditch Squirrel Summoner Boy. Of course, there's also the final part that was revealed, and like SeaSeria, I'm only going to go over preliminary thoughts on her. She is very, very far away. She's not until the next Mystic rotation after Closer Charles, so in 3 weeks. So when I get closer to her, but Angel of Light, Angelica, dupe Blue Angelicas and Stingelicas will work for her imprints, as well as, of course, Meteor Shards. Her stat, she is actually decently fast for her class at 112. See here, effectiveness ER, okay attack. You see the effectiveness imprint, and what does she do? Well, her S1, it has a silence and also a decrease CR if the target is silenced after being attacked, and the silence chance is 75% with Molas, which means that she does have a pretty decent chance at getting the CR decrease. I also must say that S1s have been getting pretty good recently. Oh, this is a little bit out of order. S2. So she's immune to stun, which is pretty big. And then she's also a an anti AoE. So if a caster if an ally besides her is attacked, she will increase the CR of herself by 8% for each ally that is attacked. So AoE, it is 24%. Also, if it's all allies, she activates Guardian Angel 100% at full molas, which dispels 1 debuff and grants skill nullifier. So it's not really surprised that they released something like SeaSeria, and then they already have a unit that can potentially counter her, and some other units too. This is going to make it so that maybe you can't just like full on AoE right off the bat, and a Pavel Cleave might have to try to one-shot the Angelica, right? And maybe there are instances where you just build her very bulky, because the only important thing really is his passive right here, and he can't do that. And then he's very sad, because then he has the AoE, and he procs it anyway. So there's stuff like that, right? And then finally, the S3. It is a 2 buff this spell with a 100% chance, right? To make them unbuffable with 2 turns and a silence. So, no soul burn, ignore ER, but still a very strong S3 for an level 4 star. If you need units for your anti-cleave suite, I would recommend that you probably try to maybe pick her up. Unfortunately, she is paired with Specimen Says, who hasn't really been good. So there is that factor too. But I feel like she's going to be more useful for most players versus Closer Charles. Again, it is too bad that she is with Spez. Again, though, in a couple of weeks or so, when she's closer to when she's actually coming out, I will have a more detailed and well thought out opinions on her kit. And also, the meta might change, in that time too. So there is also that. Couple of other things that I touched on are the ML Leo recall. So it is for 2 weeks. Which means that the recall will be over by the time that the new rotation is out. When I say new rotation, I mean the Spez Angelica one. You have to be at level 50, and you can only do it 1 time. Just like any other recall, you get all the stuff back. So you get meteor shards based on the number of imprints you have. And if you have it, and if for some reason you ego fragmented it, yeah, you get that back too. There'll also be a tool to check in to see how many other MLEOs you've had put into him. Again, I suggest you wait until the balance update to see exactly what you want to do here. And then, really quick, we have 3 banners. So we have Balance Cezanne, Less Tea Time. Less Tea Time is actually an okay artifact, but Balance and Cezanne is not used in any piece of content right now in the game, really. Sirmia, she's, a good waifu, but also not... She is actually used in a couple of PvE things, but not important enough to pull on, especially with SeaSeria coming next week. Border Coin is also okay for Inferno Kawazu, but again, it's not important enough to pull on. Next week is Green Bologna, where... Holy crap, my webcam went, like, crazy for a moment there. And Green Bologna is really good for PvE, like, don't get me wrong. But again, not important enough to pull on right now. And I also have to thank Smilegate here for putting out 3 banners right now and next week that nobody has to pull on. Because nobody has bookmarks now because of the collab. And then we have another limited unit almost like right after that. So, giving us a little bit a break, chance to save. Anyway, I am Neptune. It's been a good one. Nep out.